Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video I want to go through what I think is the secret to tanking, or more specifically what changed my mentality going into tanking, what really greatly helped me. It's no secret that tanking it's a job that has a lot of responsibilities and a lot of people are looking your way. That's why a lot of people are feeling anxious, and also why I'm making these type of guides, right? And you are the leader, and you have people following you, and you are the one who have to make decisions. So it kind of is overwhelming, when you think about all of the tank's responsibilities, and what are you actually supposed to do in Mythic Plus as a tank. And what changed it for me, and which is what I want to talk about in this video, is the balance between comfort and speed as the fundamental thing that you want to make sure that you are aware of when you're tanking in Mythic Plus. I'm gonna go into more depth with it, but just this mentality kind of just put everything into a box where it was for me at least easily comprehensive, and yeah, it was easy to get an overview of what you needed to do. So let's talk about it. The balance between comfort and speed, what does that mean? Well, comfort for the first is what I call it, but comfort is basically it's what the word is, how safe is the dungeon run, right? How comfortable are everyone, and just how much threat and danger are you going to meet, right? It's both of these aspects are spectrums, where you can go all the way in the extreme and the comfort, and you do one pull at a time. Even if you could even further than that and just do one mob at a time, right? That'll be the ultimate amount of comfort, right? Because nothing really dangerous is going to happen to your party. Everything is kickable and targetable. The only problem with doing that is that Mythic Plus is timed. So you kind of if you do that, it's gonna take way too long. And then you have on the other side, you have speed, which is, it's just how fast can you get through the dungeon. And if you go on the other extreme on speed and you just pull the entire, dungeon in one single pull, well then yeah, you can kind of see that that's gonna, end up pretty bad for everyone involved. So for me at least, the success to tanking in Mythic Plus has basically just been understanding that, in order to get through this as best as possible, you need to hit that perfect balance between comfort and speed. And saying that the perfect one is kind of on the nose, because honestly it's not really the point to get it. It's just the point to get it as close as it can be, right? Sometimes you will pull a little bit too fast. Sometimes you looking back at footage, you can actually look back and see, oh, maybe I should have pulled more. So, you won't be hitting it perfectly, but, aiming for that, perfect balance between those two. That's really where, you are going to see so much, success in your Mythic Plus runs. And the reason for that, the reason why this actually, works, at least for me personally, is because this actually forces you to analyze the game. And I think more importantly, it actually forces you to analyze your party. So one thing about tanking that I don't feel is mentioned enough when it comes to tanking guides and whatever, is basically just how tanking and your routing and all of that stuff is very dynamic. That actually honestly has to change every single time you go into a new party group. Again, I'm being a little bit on the nose here, or provoked, because of course you shouldn't change the entire route just because you got a paladin instead of a resto druid or whatever. But my point is just that you are actually supposed to be looking at the strengths and the weaknesses of your group and your party every single dungeon, and then change your plan accordingly to that. So I think the first thing to really because how this is all great and easy, yeah, just analyze the party, but how do you actually do that in practice, right? One of the first things that is an eye-opener into your group's efficiency is basically just the first pull. There's actually a really good reason why you want to pull really big in the first couple seconds of a dungeon run. Not only do you have all your cooldowns up and everyone is ready to go, testing your group here in the beginning actually gives you a straight ahead answer of what is to come for the receiving and receiving duration of the dungeon, right? Can they actually handle it, or can they not? Do you actually have two DPSers who have extremely high bursts, but then one DPSer who's like really falling behind and you actually find out this is kind of like a carry-on, that will have an impact on like the overall damage, right? So like that's actually the first step. It's actually to look at your group's damage. It's I wouldn't get like too sucked into details because people do have a tendency to kind of get the simplistic, like it's the simplest answer out of numbers like this. There are a lot of variations, you know, like other classes built for bursting, other classes like built for like just overall and like damage. So there's like, you know, nuances to this, but it is a good way to get like a general idea, the first pull here, where damage-wise your party is. And when you see that result, when you see either the damage is extremely high or extremely low, or like where it is in the middle, that's actually where you need to, as a tank player, you need to actually go in and change that like slider on the spectrum of like comfort and speed. If you have very little damage, it doesn't matter, like you can go as fast as you can, but you won't kill the packs until you know, until they actually become like too dangerous, because you don't have the DPS to kill them enough, like quick enough. So you need to actually like change the slider back to that, okay, I need to go a little bit slower, I need to be a little bit more safe, a little bit more comfortable right here, right? And the same way the other way around, like if you have extremely high damage, you have like people who are like really bursting, maybe you're doing lower keys, you might be gearing up another ult or whatever, I mean another tank, and you have a guy in your party who like that's his ult or something like that, and he's just like blasting off, or he's maybe helping carrying a friend. That also makes you like, should make you change the slider. So you're like, okay, great, let me pull even further, let me pull even more, let's go faster. I'm also tracking my DPS's cooldowns and also my healers, but more specifically the DPS's damage cooldowns. Because this is also something, you know, that will have an effect on your route, or should have an effect on your, you know, comfort and speed and all that stuff. It's like, you know, you need to know when your DPS is using their cooldowns or when they are holding them back. And more specifically, if you go into like a poll and you expect someone to use their cooldowns and they don't, that might mean that you should probably pull bigger the next one. This is also, you know, according to your own cooldowns, like don't be blind for that. So again, this is, you don't have to change up every single time like your speed and stuff like that, but having an eye on it is so incredible, like useful. Because this again also goes the other way around. If you are not expecting your DPSs to use the cooldowns, but they are, well then maybe you should not pull that extremely big pull that you have planned, you know? Tanking is a dynamic job. It's something where you need to like constantly be looking around, not just at the dungeons and stuff like that, because, you know, the first step to learning how to tank is, you know, learning the dungeons, learning all the mobs and the mechanics. But the second part of it is, you know, navigating that dungeon with a different group who has different strengths and different weaknesses every run, right? Like that becomes the quote-unquote end game of tanking. But you know, damage is not everything. Another thing that's like really useful to track, or just not really track, but just keep an eye out on, is interrupts. Because I've actually had multiple runs where our damage is extremely well, our healing is great, but our CC is just not up to par. Either we have really bad communication, or just like we just, you know, over like CC the same mob, or like, you know, throw two stuns right on each other. Or simply I just see that people are not using the interrupts and stuff like that. And that can be difficult to plan around, because then the question becomes, you know, can you kill these packs quickly enough before like they become too much of danger, since people are not really kicking them, or like most of the kicking is on you. That becomes like a question you need to answer, and like you need to look at, you know, and pull accordingly to like how much CC do you have, right? If I don't really have my Sigil of Silence, you damn sure I'm gonna like throw as many like sigils to like get the cooldown off, but I'm also gonna try and see if I can pull like small, like medium packs before whatever pack that I needed to use my CC for. Sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes it's better, honestly, just to wait a few seconds if you can. You shouldn't stand there and wait like for 40 seconds or like a whole minute or like whatever, but there is like, you know, times where you want to like slow down just a little bit to catch up with your cooldowns if that's needed. And then of course you also need to be wary of your healer. Healer in you, like the healer in you has like a really, should have a really great partnership, but you have a deep intact like partnership. And for the most like it takes, it's honestly just that you as a tank will just, you know, do your own thing, take care of yourself, and then the healer will step in if you ever like, you know, you mess up some cooldowns or you get hit harder than you thought, or like, you know, he's there to like save you and stuff like that, you know, your safety net. That's also why if you have a healer that for some reason or other is falling behind, because, you know, that's just how it is sometimes. You have a guy who just maybe just doesn't really have enough gear to like really like, you know, push through with the healing, or he's just, you know, he's struggling in one way or another. It doesn't matter why. The point is just that, you know, the person, the healer, is struggling. That also has a huge impact on like, you know, how much you can survive. And then again, that goes directly into your dungeon knowledge right here. That's why, you know, I think healing is a little bit more complex. Well, I mean, it's the same as like, you know, DPSs, but like with healing, you need to be really aware of like, not only what can you survive, which as a tank is honestly a lot of the things you can actually just pull really, really big and be fine on your own. A lot of these issues you're gonna find with these dungeons are actually just that they're gonna kill the other party, right? So really be mindful of like, you know, what damage does the party take when you're pulling these whatever packs you're now pulling. And are you sure that the healer can actually heal these packs? Because if not, you know, there is like, that's where again you change up this slider. Like you pull it a little bit more head on the comfort aspect, right? You make sure that your party is comfortable doing these pulls rather than just going as fast as you can. Because like again, I really want to hit home the point of like tanking being very dynamic, because that's basically what this is. Like this is all about, as I mentioned before, navigating the different dungeons with different groups. Because I've seen a lot of like, you know, because now I'm also like playing on alts and, you know, doing a little bit of undercover tanking and stuff like that, and I definitely see tanks pulling something that, you know, they have been able to do in another keep with another group, but not realizing that, well, we actually have 2 or 3 DPSers who are extremely low gear, whatever reason, you know, someone is struggling, someone's not up there, and you see tanks just pulling these insane pulls, or actually even worse, you know, in my opinion, is the other way around. You know, tanks that has like these really geared and like strong DPS players or a healer or whatever, and just like not utilizing it, you know, just sticking to their old like dusted route, where they just like go maybe 1 or 2 packs at a time, but they could do, you know, triple pack or like whatever. Again, it depends on the key level, but you know what I mean here. This is also the same reason why I keep campaigning that, you know, DPS pulling for you isn't initially something that's meant as an insult or something bad. It could just be your DPSer who's like telling you as a tank, hey, we are strong, like we can do a lot of damage, we have a lot of burst, go bigger, please, like, you know, utilize us, take advantage of the DPSs you have in your group. And again, like saying all of this, I am aware that, like, you know, if you are new to tanking, this is, you first need to get, you know, before you can like be dynamic and change up your route, you first need to be very comfortable in a route. And like, so I get that there is like a learning step to this, where you have to be, as I mentioned, like you have to be really comfortable. You have to really be sure in the dungeons and like, you know, in the pools. Build up some dungeon knowledge and some experience before you can really, you know, utilize your team and take advantage of the different strengths, and also, you know, try to cover up as many weaknesses as you have. Oh, and I also, you know, just wanted to mention that, you know, these weaknesses are not always just linked to just purely player performance, you know, whether you have good or bad DPS or healers or like whatever. Sometimes it's also just classes and like, you know, as I mentioned before, like CC, but also just stuff like, do you have a battle res? Do you have Bloodlust? Do you have like, whatever do you have? Like Bloodlust is probably the most clear example of like, you know, there are definitely, I think everyone knows this, like, you know, there are pulls where you just do not want to do that unless you have that 40% haste buff, right? That's kind of like the way that you want to think about everything, basically, when it comes to like, you know, your group and their utilities and like all the stuff that they have. What classes do you bring and stuff like that? Do you have your devotion already, like that 3%, or like you have the Mark of the Wild Averse? Because, you know, that little damage reduction, that actually goes a long way, especially for your other group mates, right? Yeah, because basically, like, I started looking at this as like this spectrum, this like comfort speed spectrum, the balance between them as like an adjustable slider that I can, like, you know, tune down and up for whenever I wanted to and whenever I felt like that there was a need for it. And actually having that mentality is what like made me really better at analyzing the game and the party and stuff like that. Still not perfect at it. I don't think anyone is, but I think this is the way that, like, you know, make me think about that way, because the thing that that actually does, like thinking about the spectrum and stuff like it, is you start on asking yourself some questions, really important questions, stuff like, okay, how much damage is my party being able to do? Well, I should probably test that out before we get too deep in the dungeon, you know? How is my healer, right? You start looking at how many people are kicking different casts. Are they all kicking the one, you know, important one, or are the kicks are going out to all of the different mobs? Are people using their CCs and different utilities? How is the healer? All of these kind of questions is you know, because basically what this does, it makes other people's faults your issue, or I'd rather say like your puzzle, like, you know, to solve. If you have a bad healer, if you look at that as just like, oh, I have a bad healer, like the key's like broken and stuff like that, that's it. Like, yeah, the key's over, right? You have given up. But, like, you know, as I mentioned in my Zero to Hero, like back in the day, I was about to say last season, on my Warlock, I mentioned like how much I miss playing tank because of how much influence you had. Because that's really where like it hit home, where like you can have, like, when you're playing something other than tank, if you have a bad DPSer, then, you know, you just have bad DPS, right? Like, what can you do? As a tank, you can actually do stuff because you can pull accordingly to lead, and you can actually carry them through. When this, like, you know, shows up, you have bad DPS or bad healer, you might not be able to free test it, but you might be able to time it still, instead of it just being completely untimable. When you start looking at things through the lens of like, what can I personally change or do different to support our group and to, like, you know, help the entire team, that's where you will see all of your success. So yeah, that's it for, I guess that's it for this video. I just wanted to like make this quote-unquote quick little guide video. I am actually working on the next Zero to Hero, and I put a poll on, like, you know, what tank you wanted to see, because I really wanted to play tank for this Zero to Hero challenge. I might, I keep saying Zero to Hero, I might go higher than 2500, I'm pretty sure of it. I don't want to like promise anything, but I'm pretty sure I'm going higher, because I think I'm able to hit like 2500 really fast, and I kind of want to see, you know, because it looks like I'm going to play the monk, and I kind of want to see the monk being pushed into like kind of hard, difficult keys and stuff like that. So stay tuned for, you know, the Zero to Hero to come back. I can't wait for that. And yeah, I hope you guys all are just enjoying tanking and enjoying the game, and take care, everyone.